from downtown Mill Bay. Timmy and Ben and Lily. There we go. Archie. Zoe. So there you are. Lisa. Felix. Zane. Casey. Annabelle. Clara. And William K. Yeah. And Alejandra. Kate. You're both here. Oh, right, beside each other. That's handy. Violet. Naomi. Brandon. Hugo. Parker. And Hud. Kieran. Kate. We already did that. Anderson. Thank you for attending class. Thomas? Excellent. Anderson? Where is it? Are you supposed to be here? Yeah. Okay, never mind. You're not supposed to be scuba-ing right now or something?
I didn't get an email, but if I get one, I'll let you know.
Okay, well done. I appreciate when you're in class, even if you're supposed to be somewhere else. I once gave someone extra marks because they filmed themselves doing Chemistry 11 in their English Lit class. Nice. Hurting yourself to do better in my class, always worth extra marks. Of course, I told their teacher, and they did worse in that class. But, like, everything's a balance. Okay, we left off last day. We are still doing all the things that ethics isn't. We haven't even gotten to what ethics is yet. Sort of. So, it isn't the law. Although we are going to use the law for examples. It isn't religion. Although we actually will use religion at a time for examples. We talked about Euthyphro dilemma. These are some of the things we just discussed as a little summary. And we are going to leave it here. I am assuming, and this is an assumption, there is no way that we can prove this. If there is a deity. There is a way to discover what is the good outside of knowing the deity. You do not have to have divine revelation. And that means everybody can decide what is good in this life. This, if you are, depending on your religious background, this might be built into it. There are some Christian sects, I'm more familiar with those, that don't think this. They're very definitely divine command. But other ones that point out that there are parts of the scripture that say that people who have never known God can actually get into the doors of heaven because they lived a good life and they were able to discover it on their own, which would kind of imply it is external. Either way, if it's divine command theory, then essentially there is no ethics. We can't discover it. There's no way we can find out. And we're all helplessly lost in a morass of good and evil that we'll never be able to tell unless we manage to find the right religion. We're not going to do that. And we're just going to make the assumption. And it is an assumption. You get to decide which one that you believe in. There's no real evidence either way. There's no real evidence that we can point to that says that a deity exists or not, so you're allowed to decide. But the main reason is that as part of this theory, we have discovered that giving people religious freedom is a fundamental right. And so that's reflected in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, in the U.S. Constitution. In the U.S., they'll talk about the wall, the separation between church and state, which makes a lot of sense given that they were fleeing, or at least being revolting against the good and just UK government, of which Canada was a part. And one of the things that the UK has is a national religion. If you are in the UK, you fund a national religion. It's Anglicanism, and that's part of your governing body. Part of their Senate actually has members of the religion that are just appointed every particular year. And so the U.S. wanted to make a clear separation. The U.K. now has similar freedoms in terms of individual rights, even though it's part of their government. I don't know what their particular document is called. They have a lot because their age of their country is so much older than Canada's. Ours is the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and your charter rights are inviolate. I should mention, given that rights are being mentioned a lot more in the news now in Canada, if you ever hear the phrase parent rights, just so that you're aware, that does not exist in Canada. There's no such thing as parent rights. There are rights of the child, there's rights of adults, and you have rights, and your parents have a responsibility to ensure that you are respected for those rights. So they earn to feed you and clothe you and protect you because you have those rights. But your parents don't have rights over you. So we're going to go into this later with the BC Infants Act. If you go to the health center and say, I want this medication, I don't want my parents to know, they are legally obligated not to tell your parents. You are a mature minor. Now, if they decide that you're not a mature minor, for example, you are, for lack of a better term, acting crazy, you have a severe mental trauma such that you cannot make your own decisions, then they become your proxy and they have to know. But medical things are protected. There's no such thing as your parental rights to know over your own medical files. If you go see a doctor, you're allowed to ask your parents to leave the room, and then they can tell you whatever they want. I've tried to do that with my own children. You know, I should leave the room while you have a discussion with the doctor to tell them anything that you don't want me to hear. They refuse to let me leave, which I find very irritating. How are you going to learn how to do proper medical care if I'm in the room? But you do have that as a right. Zane, you had a question? No. Everything in Canada is based on the welfare of the rights of the child, so in the child's best interests, everything from custody to whether or not treatment is allowed. Okay, wait a minute, what's this section? This section is too early. We're going to do that one and then go back to it. Natural law, another thing ethics is not. And natural law, I feel is most often seen in the grocery store. Buy this food because it is organic. Eat this because it comes from the earth and it is natural. It is the view that the world has its values inherently built into it. There are things that are good and things that are bad. And we can look at the laws of nature and describe what should be the case. And it can tell us how things ought to be. This goes all the way back to Socrates, where a duck wasn't just some adapted dinosaur trying to survive in a modern world, but there was an essence of duckiness, and it was trying to become the best duck it could. And you could look for these lessons in nature. You could make the statement, you shouldn't do that. That goes against nature. If we look at nature, they are all trying to have as many children as possible. Why are you still in this classroom? You should go forth and multiply. It is against nature right now what you're doing. How dare you? You can draw all sorts of lessons from nature. That wasn't actually prescriptive. Don't actually do that. Yeah, you don't have to say. When they designed this classroom, I really wish they put the door over on the side. We could face the lab, and then the other door could be in the back. You wouldn't have to walk across the entire classroom in some sort of walk of shame. I have bowels. It's a little strange. Question? Yeah?
Why don't we just switch the classroom on then?
Because the projector is not something I'm allowed to move.
Oh.
Yeah. Jerks. So that Socrates example Everything is striving to serve its natural purpose. You have a purpose. What is natural is right, and what is unnatural is wrong or evil. So what are some natural things that are good? What are examples of this? Yes.
Weather.
Pardon?
Weather or temperature.
Weather or temperature can be good. Yep. Nope, stretching. Natural things that are good.
Sunshine.
Sunshine. Food. Food natural? What kind of food?
Natural food.
What kind of food though?
No.
Like Dr. Pepper?
No,
Yes.
I don't know. An apple.
An apple. Apple's natural. Straight from the tree. Still got the bugs in it. Good. Bugs provide extra protein. Some unnatural evils. Yeah.
Smoke. Or like not smoke, but like smog.
Smog, busy producing in our factories. It was a big deal when I was growing up. They would talk about acid rain. The smog from the factories would go up. The smog was sulfur containing, so it would react with water to make sulfuric acid. It's also nitrogen containing, react with water to make nitric acid. That would fall down and really hurt the crops. They managed actually to put in a lot of processes to combat that. And it's not nearly the worry that it once was. In fact, Canada actually had a decrease in the growth of its crops in a year where they actually really stopped a lot of the acid rain because our crops actually had adapted to slight amounts of acid in the rain and then to readapt to non-acidic rain. So yeah, but acid rain, not so good. Anything else? Yes?
Could it be like your sexual orientation?
Sexual orientation. Are you saying natural good or unnatural evil? I don't want to say that one. I find, particularly for gender, I find those arguments really odd, mostly because it will be explained in the next section. If it's natural, that doesn't mean it's good or bad, as we're going to deal with in a minute. And if it's unnatural, we kind of do unnatural things all the time. Can anybody give me some things that are natural? And I think for this one, I'm going to make you. I'm just going to go around the class and I'm going to point at you. Just going to start, let's start at the back. And give me either a natural evil or unnatural good.
Mosquitoes.
Mosquitoes. Saw a paper once where the scientist said we could kill every mosquito in the world, wouldn't have any impact on the ecosystem, and it would be great. Yep. Name anything. What are you chewing on right now? Gum. Do you think the gum is good? Is it made from natural rubber from the rubber tree? So, gum. Also, word of warning, you're not allowed to gum inside this building. Yes? Pardon? Trees. Are you saying they're a natural evil or an unnatural good? They're good. I'm looking for unnatural good. So, something artificial that you feel is good. Or something natural that you feel is bad. Bees? Yeah. Oh, bees are so evil. Yeah. Oh, they sting. Go. Storms? Clothes?
Or unnatural good, like
Yeah.
they're not natural.
Imagine right now if we were all completely naked. I don't think we all want that.
If everyone was naked, it'd be normal.
Yeah.
I would still be clothed. Yes. Okay, let's get beyond the clothes. Go. No, poke him. Why is your laptop up? Both of you. Oh no, you take notes on it. I've seen you. What are you? Yes. What are you doing? Oh, your laptop. Do you have your piece
I
of
don't
put
need
it away?
this.
And your example of the unnatural good or natural evil.
Me?
Yeah.
I did the close one.
No, I thought you did the good.
No,
He did the
Oh, you were so well hidden. I literally, you voice projected. Yes.
like disease.
Disease. Name one, because otherwise you're taking out a whole category. Cholera. Is there anything you like in modern society? Music.
Processed food.
Processed. Name a type of food. What's your favorite food?
Pancakes.
Pancakes. Pancakes are so good.
Like medicine.
Medicine. Name one.
Like
Advil. Advil's awesome. Now, we've already done that row, so I'm going to move up.
Okay. Cancer.
Cancer. Yeah.
COVID.
COVID. Hospitals. Because it takes out an entire area and everything in it, I'm just going to say hospital buildings. Because otherwise you take all of healthcare.
Oh, like baked beans.
Baked beans. Video games. Earthquakes. AIDS. It's hard for me to communicate just how scary that was. When I was your age, there was a disease. Nobody knew how it was happening. We knew it was in the blood supply. We didn't know who had it. We didn't know how it was transmitted, and we didn't know how people got it. Just people started dying. It was weird. And then once we did find out, there was a lot of blame and trauma. And it was at the point people were advocating, like, essentially, if you walked out the door and you were a child, your parents were basically supposed to be throwing condoms at you the whole time. Because just totally frightened about how it was going to happen. Now, we've not really discovered a cure, but we've managed to reduce the virus. It's one of the great stories of being able to handle it. We can't cure it yet, but we can get the viral load so low, it's basically zero. And it turns out you just basically inject money into someone. And the drug is very expensive. So rich people have learned how to cure it. So all the wealthy countries are fine. But if you're not a wealthy country, it's still a huge deal. Are you giving an example, or you just have a question?
I have a
Question.
question. Is it true that like AIDS originated from like chimpanzees?
There is a form of simian IV, a human immunodeficiency virus. There is a simian. So the theory is that it crossed over, which caused a lot of people to giggle, like, how did that happen? But there's a lot of places in the world where people eat bushmeat.
What's bush meat?
When you eat chimpanzees.
Oh.
And the process of butchering and capturing and all that. So humans are in close contact with primates all the time. So a lot of the flus we get are reservoirs in birds or pigs or anything. And then one of them just manages to jump into us. You've heard the bat theory for COVID? It's just in a reservoir. And if it just happens to infect us, then it probably does so at the very beginning very badly, because it's adapted for a bat or a pig or a chimp or whatever. But very quickly, if any of it can survive, evolution makes sure only the ones that are really good at infecting you keep surviving each generation, and then we have a new virus. And often we have no we're not adapted to that virus because it's new. So there's certain flus that live in pigs, for example, and they just pop out every flu season towards us. So they sort of jump between both species. Archie.
Lights.
Lights.
Electronic lights.
Lights. You could say candle would be true too. Medicine, all of medicine, name one. When the last time you were sick, what did you take? You ever any medicine? The only one we have down is Advil. You can name anything else. What kind of treatment do you have when you have cancer? Just so you know, this is a very common thing to happen. Have you ever had penicillin?
Maybe, yeah.
Sure, we'll go with that. Antibiotics. If you're sitting there, and I ask you a question, it's like I can't think of anything, or you're wondering why that person can't think of anything. When I point at you and I'm expecting a question, I'm trying to get you used to it as well, so that you don't panic. But when you panic and your adrenaline rises, it literally interferes with your ability to recall long-term memory. So when you sit at a test and you're like, I can't remember my own name, it's because your adrenaline's high, which is why it's vitally important you calm down. And then it will come back. But if you don't calm down, it won't, which can then give people more anxiety, which means that they're not calming down. So having some exercises that help you with that, or getting used to something, lots of classroom participation will help reduce that. But it's a very normal thing. If you can answer it normally, but you can't in the moment, it's your adrenaline. It's getting you ready to fight or run away, which is useless when you're being asked a question. But very good if you're fighting a bear, which seems to be something that comes up a lot lately. Yes? Insulin? Hockey equipment. Even the game. So we can see, and you just need like some examples. You don't have to have written down all of them. But we can see this is not an ethical system. We can't look at something in nature and say it's good. There's lots of things that are good and bad. When the tsunami happened at Christmas in the East Asia region, there were people who were on holiday and just saw the waves go out. And they thought, oh, great, it's a low tide. We can go out there and pick seashells. And they went out and saw this cool stuff that had never been revealed before. And then the wave came back in and killed everybody off. And if you hadn't gotten to high ground, it was a huge disaster. There were a few people that were like, there were old legends that said, when the waves go way out, climb up the nearest hill. Bad things are going to happen. And there were some who did that and then realized that this has happened before. Humans had learned and had passed this down without necessarily passing down the reason. Yep.
What is about like things like democracy or like other stuff? Is it also like unnatural?
Democracy. Democracy doesn't like just exist in nature. It's a product of our behavior. We invented it. We invented the rules. We're also going to ask, where would something like math go on this list? Is it something we invent and it's good? Or is it something we discovered and we hate math class, so it's evil? Or is it a natural good or an unnatural evil, depending on whether or not you like math class? However, this entire section, if I can pull it up, come on, click. This is now so much so not ethics, is that we actually have a word for it in logic. There we go. And it's called the appeal to nature fallacy. If you say that something is good because it happens in nature, nature is neither good nor evil. It just exists. And if we take lessons from it, they can be either good or evil. We can't judge things based on the way they are. I see this in the grocery store where they have slap labels like this is organic, this is non-organic, this was grown. They want to give you because people like to feel that their food is wholesome and from the earth. But the thing that makes one thing less healthy than another thing is often not whether or not it's natural, but just the constitute of the nutrients in it. Organic food and regular food, I hesitate to say inorganic because that has a chemistry meaning, and it means it's a rock. I once worked at a turkey farm, and most of the time I shoveled feces But one day they put me in the office to answer phones, and someone phoned me and said, "Are your turkeys organic?" I'm in third year biochemistry. I said, "Of course they're organic. All animals are organic. They're not made of stone." That wasn't what they meant. They mean that you cultivate according to a certain number of products. The nutritional content of organic and regular food is exactly the same. There can't be a difference. It's grown from the same plant. They put in the same nutrients. If you get a local farm that's grown in small batches, that will make the most difference to your food. But giant industrial farms, food content over and over again is exactly the same. You may want one over the other versus how it impacts the environment. It does or does not, or that sort of thing. But they're the same. There's nothing good nor bad. And certainly after a long day, a chocolate bar may not be good for you, but it may be the best thing that happened to you that day. If we were to go to, as another example, and I'll probably, if this is what I think it is, have to stop the live stream. It's going to be one of the most annoying voices of all time. But it has some great examples of natural evils. Let me stop the live stream from being seen or There's a number of parents. The roundworms are but one type of worm. Have you ever seen the people that like really like dogs? Like really like dogs, and they let the dog lick them all over their face? There's a type of worm that infects dogs that can also infect humans. And kids will go out, and kids are often will get this because they'll let the dog lick them on the face, or they'll like lick the floor where some of the dog poop is, or anything like that. If it gets inside of them, these worms, they crawl out your butt at night and lay eggs all the way around so that you're really itchy. So the next morning, you scratch yourself, and now the eggs, you can't see them, but they're sticking. They're on your hands. And then anything you touch, so you touch your fork, you touch your food, you'll reinfect yourself. But if you touch anything anybody else puts in their mouth, now they get it as well. And so it makes you really itchy, so you're always scratching your butt. And it can do. Parents will go into the kids' room at night. They open the door, they turn the light, the kid's laying down, face down, the blanket's not on. They see these little wriggling worms coming out, and then you rush them to the hospital for the emergency. It's a few pills over a week, and you can be cured of them. But yeah.
The eggs grow up in your bat.
The eggs what?
Grow up in your bat.
In your bath?
But
Yeah, go in your intestines. What your butt is attached to.
imagine waking up.
No, I wouldn't actually buy that.
A version of those. There was a diet pill that was sold in the 1970s, and a lady had spilled some of the pills, and then she noticed that one of the pills was crawling. And it was actually tapeworm segments that they were selling to people so that people would get infected by the tapeworm. The tapeworm eats some of your food, so yeah, it actually can cause weight loss as a side effect of the disease. But people were deliberately like eating tapeworms, and the company was selling it without people's knowledge.
Isn't it like some models take them like on purpose so they can get different dinner?
Take what on purpose?
Like the worms to
Yes.
dinner.
Yeah, there's a famous opera singer who did that as well. There's lots of side effects to it. It is not a recommended method. In fact, if any of you are thinking about those types of things, you shouldn't be. You're way too young. As long as you're out there running around and basically not eating junk food every day, which you probably know of, you're fine. You shouldn't be worrying about that sort of thing. It leads to all sorts of body image problems. The fastest growing mental health problem right now is body dysmorphia amongst young boys, because for a long time we worried about it in young women. People identify as women, body dysmorphia, eating disorders. But now the industry has noticed that a whole side of the population wasn't being affected by this, and so a lot of the imaging and advertising is now targeted towards people identify as boys, and now that's growing and now getting up to there where it is, so that it's equal between the genders. Yay! So, natural law isn't ethics. Oh, and to go back to the example you gave. So when we look at things, this was a very common argument in the 80s, particularly when people were debating things like gay marriage, and they would say, look, it's unnatural. The purpose of marriage is to have kids. Well, number one, lots of people get married and never have kids. It's not a requirement to have kids when you're married. Also, if one person's infertile, does that mean that they're not allowed to get, like it didn't make sense. But the entire concept that it's natural or unnatural is itself flawed. Because a lot of people bought into that argument, and they would use arguments like, oh, you're saying gay marriage is unnatural, but wolves and these other species of animals will have gay relationships throughout their life, and that's a normal part of the ecosystem. Which is true, but also misses the point. We go to school in clothing and eat processed food. None of that is natural. If it really was possible for you to choose your gender, like you could just sit down and go, bing, and you could, what? So what? It would still be okay. It just means that you could choose it. Now, we know from a lot of things that there's a lot less choice in it. It does seem to be entirely natural. But like, people choose what church to go to, what school to go to. They choose their religion. They choose their political alliance. Choosing your gender, if it was such, would not make it any more good or bad. The whole entire choice argument is nonsense. Naturality doesn't imply any ethics. If you're doing something that's unnatural, it doesn't mean it's bad. You probably need to judge how it's affecting other people. Are you hurting people? And all the normal things that we do if we judge them it's good or bad. But you'll see these very often in morality arguments. It's natural, therefore bad. When the first transplant happened, people made movies about, like, what if you were transplanted a killer's arm or a killer's heart, and then you went out and become a murderer? Because they didn't understand transplants, and it seemed artificial and scary. And then those movies kind of went away as a trope, because people realized that transplants don't really work like that. Okay, the next, some examples to write down as now that we've discussed it. Remember, don't take verbatim notes. This is known technically when you're talking about this as morality, as natural law theory. So we're saying that it's not ethics, but people who use it would be using natural law theory. And to use the example of gay marriage, just because you can produce offspring is not a reason for concluding that sex ought or ought not to be engaged in. Now, this is something people still do. There are still people who refuse to give people birth control because it's against their personal beliefs. They're basing their beliefs on a religion that looked at nature and said, in nature we don't have contraception, so you're not allowed to have contraception. You're not allowed to use a pill. You're not allowed to use condoms, which is fine, again, for the individual. But if you're applying it to other people, it's not an ethical system that we can use. And you've probably met people that seem to be naturally greedy, violent. People who have said, I'm just an honest person. I say what I think. And then they're just really rude all the time. That's a natural disposition. But that doesn't mean they should be doing that. And there's no evidence to show that when you get everything off your chest right away, that you are mentally more stable or have a more peaceful life than the people who learn to control their emotions. There's a difference between bottling something up and just being polite. Oh, should I unlock the door? And my favorite example are dams. The beaver dam is natural. Occurs in nature. Beavers go out and make dams. And I want to say a couple things about a beaver dam. Number one, they suck. Look how terrible that dam is. It's barely holding back the water. It's in one spot, and it's made by almost an accident. What beavers do is they try to find deep water, and then they store leaves there that they can eat. It's literally like a fridge. And if there is deep water, they don't make a dam. But if they hear water running, they think their fridge is leaking. So they just start building dams anywhere they can. Sometimes at random, like they'll build it where it doesn't make sense. But eventually, if they keep hearing running water, they're going to get the right spot and they'll build the dam. Whereas, look at this beauty. Way more water. This dam kicks ass compared to that. It also did an environmental study before we built this dam. We looked to see what people it would impact. How much good would be produced, how much bad. Does this beaver care that he flooded some farmers' fields or killed other gophers who were living in a hole nearby but now flooded? No. That beaver sucks. This dam is awesome. Unnatural good, natural evil. We used to have a dam right close to Brown College. It actually flooded the whole area in a storm and took out a bridge. You can still go see the remnants of the bridge. It's really close nearby if you know where to walk. Ms. Hedquist walks there all the time, as do I. If you ever want to tour it, thinking of doing that in Paris one of these days. You can't see the bits of the dam anymore, but you can see the impact it had on the environment. It was disastrous. Stupid beaver. National symbol. We also get into a logical problem, and here's where the beaver dam really helps. Is the beaver dam natural?
Yes.
Right. Is that other dam natural? Why not? Yeah, but the beaver dam was natural. It's beaver made. Why is the beaver dam natural?
Because they use like natural things, and we use concrete.
Is concrete not natural?
No.
What's concrete made out of? Yes?
Is it more still a human intervention versus like literally any other
Yeah.
species on the planet?
Well, we often will say, oh, it's human, therefore artificial. So it just is a short form of human versus others. But if we go to natural, is everything the beaver does natural?
Wait.
No? What can a beaver do that's
What was it?
unnatural?
Does natural imply that like it's just the ecosystem and not none of the animals doing it? Because if so, then
No, I'm not trying to imply. I mean, would you have said before this talk that the beaver dam was natural?
I mean,
Even yeah, because the beaver made it. A beaver's a mammal.
it's made out of sticks. And
It's
not
made out of
super-
sticks.
It's not super like fortified.
Oh, so natural means like it's not very good.
I mean, yeah. Well, not necessarily. But also, it's like just look at the difference between them.
Oh yeah,
Between
sure,
natural
yeah,
and unnatural.
yeah. But this is made out of sticks and stones.
Yeah.
What's this made out of?
Sticks and stones.
Sticks and stones.
They're stronger sticks. And
Yeah.
stones.
So like we're better at it.
It's like
Yeah.
before
We
you
can
start
kick a
to-
beaver's butt, yeah. But we're mammals, they're mammals. Technically, isn't everything we do natural?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess it's just like more. If it's like bigger and it just impacts stuff more, then it's like.
Better.
Like if that dam was smaller, they wouldn't need to do a bunch of research on who it would affect.
Right. Well,
But,
but
beavers are too stupid to make a dam that
right,
big.
yeah, yeah. So it's not that this it's not that that is natural, it's just that it's stupid. Yeah.
Zane,
Yeah.
so you're saying if a 4-year-old made a dam, it would be natural?
Yeah.
But if like an adult makes a dam, it's not
I like so now we're going not from the human made versus animal made, just the intelligence of the humans involved. Yeah.
The beaver dam, like the beavers, as you said, make them off like instinct. They hear the water and they make one.
Yeah.
Whereas humans do like math.
Yeah.
It's just cringe.
Math is so
And so
cringe.
they build a
Yeah.
dam. It's also like supersized, which isn't good
Why is it not good?
because it's bigger.
Yeah.
Bigger.
That makes it better. We've all known that bigger is by definition better. Right? Like how many of you are 6'5" or higher? That's why I say bigger is better. Yes?
I think it's more the reason behind it, like the reason for the beaver to build like the
Right.
things.
Selfish for its own family, providing power to thousands of people.
Yeah, but it's also selfish for the human, right?
It's what?
It's also selfish for the human rights. Maybe they like kill like.
Oh, it's also, yeah. We did an environmental impact on other creatures as well and make sure that we weren't killing off anything that was going to become extinct. Yeah, no, that's true. The back?
I was just like about to say, if bigger means like artificial, then like what is the sun?
Right. That's nuclear power plant, natural. Sun, unnatural fusion plant. Based on size. Like that. There's, yeah? Oh, just scratching your head? Okay. Kieran, I haven't heard from you yet.
Everybody knows the sun is just a really big spotlight that they turn off at night.
I do like that one.
So when you say like natural, not natural, it's just like a label for
Right.
stuff that people make, like stuff that human make,
Yeah.
stuff that other things make, because it's kind of just like unnatural. It's more like, oh, humans made
Yeah.
this.
Because there was a time in human history where we thought everything was created, because this is a very westernized concept, everything was created for us. And we can own things, and we should protect it, that's also in there in that westernized concept, but we're different than it. And then along came science and said, you know, you're mammals, right? And we're like, why? And we're like, well, you have hair, and you give off milk, and your genetics are all the same, and your bones seem to go back a long ways to these other primates. You're just one of the other animals. We're like, we don't like that very much. And then they fought about it for a while, and then they went, okay. So the distinction comes before that. This whole natural unnatural idea predates science in many ways, modern understanding of science. And so it has just become a label for made by humans, not made by humans. We can't say things that all things humans make are good. Would that be a true statement? No. All things that humans make are evil? No. So the natural unnatural distinction has no place in when you're discussing morality. Yep.
Who decides what like evil is and the good is.
You do.
Yeah.
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 But like from a like animal perspective, perspective, maybe like the nasty people.
Oh, sure. And when they sign our petition, they'll get a voice. That's actually an interesting concept, because animals signing a petition. Some animals can communicate, although the gorilla that learned to sign, turns out that might have been kind of a fake.
Oh, right.
That's impossible.
The gorilla never actually learned to sign. It would make movements with its hands, and then the keeper, who knew sign language, would say, oh, it's kind of close to this, and would interpret for the gorilla. And then it turns out anybody who could sign couldn't understand the gorilla, and its movements weren't consistent, if you go back and look at film. And I think actually it was the keeper it was like Clever Hans. Have you heard of Clever Hans? So Clever Hans was a horse that could do math. So you'd go, what's 7 minus 3? And Clever Hans would go, and stamp its foot. And it can even do complex math. Like you'd go like, what's 15 divided by 5? And it would go, 2. But it would also make mistakes. But it would make reasonable mistakes. Like mistakes that you would expect someone who's not very good at math to make. Which was kind of cool, because that kind of made it was. The handler had no idea they were doing this. After some filming and some people investigating, they would give the horse to a different handler, and it wouldn't be able to do math. So they knew it had to do something with the handler. And what it turns out is that when Clever Hans, when the question was done, the handler was kind of tense. And then the horse would just start tapping its foot. And when it got to the right number of beats, the handler would relax. And the horse noticed that and would stop tapping. Because it got a reward every time it paid attention to those cues. So Clever Hans was very clever, but not at math. And it turns out that Coco the gorilla, I think it was Coco the gorilla, may not have known sign language the whole time. It was just really in tune with the handler and was giving them something that the handler wanted. The handler would also do things like say, well, they signed this word, which rhymes with this other word, except it rhymes in English. And sign language doesn't rhyme in that kind of a way. And so none of it seemed to make sense. Dolphins can be trained to poke symbols and communicate. But some gorillas have also been trained to poke symbols, and those ones seem to be actually communicating. The sign language isn't. So you could have a discussion with an animal and talk about rights. They have said that we asked one, what happens after you die? It said, I go to a warm burrow under the ground, and I have lots of food, and I get to sleep as long as I want.
What did it say?
Symbols. So burrow, warm, all those symbols it has, and then there's a little bit of interpretation that has to go as well. And it knows about death. They spontaneously invented swearing. Some handlers they call literally poop heads, and other things. So there's a lot of intelligence. We know that we've gotten parrots not just to repeat things, but actually communicate. So there is some level of sophistication that we could talk about animal rights. There are some animals that were given, hippopotamus was given human rights, mostly because it was a legal trick to make sure they didn't destroy the forest around them, to protect them in an area. I think they were the ones that were put there by Escobar, the drug lord, and he imported them, and then now they're a local invasive species, but they like them, and so they're going to rip down the forest, and so the court gave them human rights, so they couldn't rip down the forest around. But there has been a long question of should we give human chimpanzees, gorillas, some form of rights, not just human rights, but alien rights. We certainly recognize that you can't just walk around kicking dogs. They have some rights, and it's someone who just walked around and kicked puppies all day is a bad person. But we do. We may say that someone who goes around and kicks a little baby pig is a bad person. But we do eat little baby pigs. And we may dissect one in biology. Yes, we do.
You mentioned at one point bringing puppies in because it was unethical to do something you didn't mention on humans.
Right.
Are you planning on like kicking puppies or something?
We are. We're going to mention kicking puppies later.
No, like are you gonna kick puppies?
Would that help with the lesson?
No, you mentioned at the beginning, you're like, I'm gonna bring puppies in at some point because doing this would be unethical on humans. But you kind of said it quietly.
I didn't mean I was going to literally bring in puppies. I'm going to use puppies as an example. But now I feel like I've set you up that you feel like that. I'll talk to Mrs. Reynolds. Maybe we could have a puppy day.
I'm really looking forward to that.
Okay. I will try to remember and see what I can arrange. Nancy?
Like, morally, is there much of a difference between just like killing a baby pig and eating it, or just like kicking it?
Is there?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but also like,
Because if you shoot
what
it
if I
like
think-
for food, it's
what?
not
No, but
No,
what if?
no. What I'm talking about with hands, yeah?
What if I don't care about pigs at all?
Right.
So it's like
But the-
morally, it's kind of.
But the pig can like feel the pain with its nerves, so if you
So, again, you know, put up your hand. Yes?
I don't even know what to say now.
No, what you just said.
Oh, pigs can feel pain.
Right. So is there a difference with someone who eats animals but kills them in a way that doesn't cause pain, and someone who just kicks pigs but is a vegetarian?
I mean, yeah, there's a difference. Like,
Is-
morally.
Because you kill for a reason.
You're killing for a reason.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you know, you're just like making damage for no reason.
Right. And so we do look at reasons behind things, the reasons behind it. And then I think there, and there. Yep. Oh, hand down. Did you have your hand? No? Were you stretching again? Patting your head? Yes. Okay.
If you torment a pig and it's like still alive, then you're not like it's not have any valuable like it's not any value to anyone. It's just a pissed off pig. But it's like if you kill it and like eat it, though, it like serves a purpose, and it's
Yeah.
like you're actually doing it for a reason.
Yeah. Is the only purpose of an animal is to serve humans?
No.
Well, just because you implied one was worthless in a way. But if you left the pig alone and didn't kick it or eat it,
Then what?
I don't know.
It would
I
die.
just left that dying off, sort of as a
Yeah.
thought.
So just eat old pigs who like already. How about we just like eat dead animals who like die? And
I think
then
Well, they're definitely dead by the time we eat them.
They wouldn't taste
I hope.
Yeah, oh, go get there and there. Go.
I just wanted to say it's not a reason. For me, it's not a reason to kill. I like to eat it.
Right.
You can't live without eating meat.
You
Are you
Yeah, you
imposing
can,
your
you can.
beliefs on us?
you don't
No, I'm not a vegetarian. I'm just saying.
No,
you
but
can't
it
live
is
without
you don't
eating animals.
have to kill it, is your point. So it's not
Yeah,
a
you don't have-
necessary
no,
act.
you don't
Yeah.
have.
I mean, you don't.
So it's
It's
not a
not like
necessary
important for
action.
life to eat pigs.
so it's like
But
nibble
you don't
on
really
a raw
have to
pig.
do anything. Like you could just
Oh no. Well
No, you have to drink water too.
well to survive.
Yeah,
But
you don't have to. It's not a
I like
Oh, you don't.
Zane, I just like that your point is like you could eat anything you want for the rest of your life. It's just the rest of your life will vary.
It's
No, like
5
the-
minutes.
But I think that's a bit
Yeah,
a bit obtuse because the idea that like assuming you want to live,
no. Okay.
you don't have to eat it. Yeah.
Okay, about rights, if
Yeah.
artificial intelligence gets to the point of consciousness,
Yeah.
do they get rights?
Do you think they should?
That's a good question. Do they?
Have you played the computer game Mass Effect? Okay, everybody in this room that you have, yeah, Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, you're now required to play it all the way to the end. And then we will talk about AI rights. Just so that we keep using AI as a term nowadays, just so that you are aware, none of the AI you're using is what we would traditionally call artificial intelligence. It's an algorithm. We can predict not only every spot, but we know it's not thinking. It's just taking, when you ask it to write an essay for you and you're really, really hoping that Ms. Hedquist won't notice, is she a teacher of grade 10? Yeah. First of all, she'll notice. Second of all, it just takes, like say it says, I was going, and then it just does a statistical analysis. What would the next word be statistically of all the information I know based on what you put in? Statistically, what would be the next word? And it goes, there's a 43% chance of the word to, 38% chance of this word, and just goes, and then just puts that word. It's all statistical analysis. There's no actual understanding there. Yes? Your hand.
Oh, no.
Is all good? Okay. Does anybody still need this up? With all of these models, I want to emphasize this particular idea. This is a very famous painting. And for someone who speaks French, what does that say?
It's not a pipe.
This is not a pipe. Is that a pipe?
It's a painting.
Is it a painting of a pipe? It's a picture of a painting. In fact, it's a projected light picture of a painting of a pipe. Is it itself a pipe? No. And this is one of the great pieces of abstract thought that was, it's an actual painting. And when we often talks about things in science especially, we will say, you know, the rain falls to make things grow, or the electron moves here because it makes the atom happier. They want to have full electron shells and they're happy. They're not happy. They're atoms. How many of you have heard that DNA is a blueprint? Do you know what a blueprint looks like?
Yeah.
It's a giant sheet of paper that has what it exactly looks like. Your DNA does not look like that. It's nothing even close to that. It's closer to computer instructions. But even then, it's not computer instructions. Computer instructions were made by somebody to follow a set path. It's a little bit more like a recipe. If you add this, add that, and wait 5 minutes, or wait 20 minutes and put it in the oven at 350, you get a cake. And it looks nothing like it, but even then it's not. It is a series of chemical reactions that occur that happen to create other things. And it is none of those things. So all of the things we use to discuss things, nature is none of them. All our metaphors are just ways to understand it. And the painting was intended to be a representation of that. The stories we tell are not necessarily the thing. Things that are natural and unnatural are neither. They're just things in nature. Nothing is good unless we make it so. Yeah?
So you're just saying that everything is a representation of another thing. It's like nothing is actually what it is, but it's a representation.
Yeah, that's how we learn. In science, if you pressed a scientist and you said, is this true? At the very end, they would say, we don't know. But it is a very good model for predicting the future. And that is the most that we can say. It's a model. And we just have better, so you're learning the Bohr model now in science, especially in my class. The Bohr model is a model. You already know it's wrong because we have quantum. But we already know that quantum is wrong because quantum doesn't agree with relativity. And so there's another better model out there. But you can use Bohr and you can use quantum. There's just better and better models. Okay, 12:58. And what kind of person would I be if I let you go early? Because that would be terrible. We are going to talk about, there's no homework today. We're going to come back to this next day, and then you are going to have a little bit of assignment. So, but I want you to go away just thinking about this one thing. Do you know what a set is in math? A set. Okay. You know, what are the types of numbers you know?
2,
Classes of numbers.
Integers.
10,
Integers. Okay, integers 1. Natural.
decimals.
Numbers with decimals. Have you heard of real? Real and imaginary. You can have, if I can get your attention, you can have sets of numbers. So you can say I have a set, and this set is all the integers and all the real numbers. You can have another set and say this is all the integers and all the imaginary numbers. And part of math is set theory. In fact, all of math is based on set theory. And then someone once said, I have a set of all the numbers. I have the set of sets. So I have a set of all the sets of numbers that don't include themselves in the set. Yep.
Zero doesn't exist.
Yeah, we'll get to them. But I just want to know that I didn't lose anybody. I have a set of numbers, and I then have a set. I have the set of all sets that do not contain itself. Does that set contain itself?
No.
But if it doesn't contain itself, then it would belong in that set. This fundamentally broke math, and math is still broken to this day. Nobody has fixed this. In fact, the main way of fixing this is called naive set theory. And that's where mathematicians have literally said, we just pretend it's not broken and everything works out fine. So we're going to talk about next day if math is invented or discovered. You can go next.